I would like for you. I would like for you to. All right. So we're continuing in our dialogue of our 5 purposes of the church. You'll recall that yesterday we were going through the outline, both to serve as a reminder, review for you, but also to begin to show you what I'm expecting when you turn in your outlines, which will be due later this week. Okay? So I wanted you to be able to see that. Now here's the updated schedule for the week. Okay, tomorrow is Probe Fair. Now we will still have class tomorrow though, but just reminding you the Probe Fair thing is tomorrow. So if you have not turned in your $10, do that today to me. I've got a checklist checklist going of who has paid. So if you've got that, you can turn it in to me. Worst case, you can turn it in tomorrow morning during Bible class. But we need that $10. That's going to cover you for everything that's associated with the day tomorrow. So make sure you bring your $10. Okay. Also, tomorrow we'll finish up with this today. So tomorrow will be your test. Okay. Tomorrow will be your test over this material. So between the notes you already took, the outline notes you've been taking as we've reviewed, hopefully, you should be great. And I should be looking at a whole bunch of A's tomorrow. Okay? And then Thursday and Friday in class, you will be able to work on your outline. Okay? You'll be able to work on your outlines. And how many of you are typing them? Yes? Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. You can work on them. Bring a... we will go down to the... Let's see. How do I want to do this? How many of you have a laptop you're doing them on at home? Several? Okay, if you would like to bring your laptop, you may do that, and you can work on it in class, and I'm totally fine with that. So those of you who do like me, and you probably handwrite everything, and then when you're done, you type it up all nice and neat, then you can continue to do that. I'm going to give you until Monday to turn these in. Okay? Monday they can be turned in. Okay? All right, but bring your laptop. I'm going to give you the intentional time in class Thursday and Friday to work on them. Due Monday, and presentations will also start next week. Okay? Sermons will start on Monday, actually. So you'll turn them in on Monday. I'll let you know Friday who is going on Monday. No, I won't. Everybody should expect to go Monday, and I'll just call you as I see fit. Basically, whoever looks the most scared, I'll probably just call on you first. Because if you're that scared, you want to get it out of the way, right, Emily? If you were nervous about it, you just would want to go first, right? If you're all chilled, like, hey, this is going to be great, like, you're not going to be stressing if you have to wait a few days. All right, questions on the schedule for the week? Great. All right. Love it.
Oh, wait.
There we go, Tim. I knew. There's always one.
Okay, could we...
Nope. The answer is no. We cannot.
But...
No. That violates everything I believe in as a Christian.
What? Okay, I was going to ask if we could petition to go first with the presentation.
You can petition, but the petition will fall. I'm like King George, and your petition will fall on deaf ears. All right. So that's fellowship. We left off with getting into kind of those stages of fellowship. We talked about membership, which is where we are kind of choosing to belong. We talked about friendship, which is where you're learning how to share. What are the things we share? We share experiences together. We share our homes. We share problems. Okay? So let's get us a new page. I guess that would start as number C. C gets into partnership stage. The partnership stage. And in the partnership stage, we began to do our part. Okay? We're doing our part in this stage. We used a verse out of 1 Corinthians. Paul wrote that we should work together as partners who belong to God, right? So the value of teamwork, the value of partnership. All right? And then D, the fourth and final stage of that is kinship. kinship. Okay? We become loving believers. I can never spell believers. As a family. Okay? Loving believers. Okay? We talked about how many Christians, who remembers the stat, how many Christians per year are murdered around the world?
A lot.
You say like 20 folks?
It's 10 million. 10 million people worldwide die every year for their faith, mostly in communist and Muslim countries, because that stuff's not allowed. We talked specifically about China and what it looks like over there. Okay? So I asked you a question. What level of fellowship are you living? So y'all talk amongst that self. Partner up with somebody and look at your neighbor and have I'm going to give you like 2 minutes for real. Talk to each other about, hey, when we talk about this fellowship and these levels, which one are you at? Go. Do that right now.
Hey, Jim, get over.
No, it's like so they're like levels and stuff.
Okay. Everything belongs to the state. All right. Well, everybody gets the same page.
All right, what did we decide? Any good conversation there? I mean, y'all are awfully talkative now. Nobody wants to tell me what anybody shared?
We shared about each other with partners.
So you felt like you were in the partnership stage. Okay. Somebody else? Hannah, what'd you and Jillian decide? Which stage were y'all in? Oh, okay. What'd y'all decide, Jillian? Both of you in friendship, you think? Okay. Okay. So we've chosen to belong to a group, so now we've transitioned into some friendship, learning how to share these things. Okay? That's good. Who else? Somebody else. What'd you and your group do? Tim?
Dylan said he was in the membership stage.
Okay.
I feel like I'm in between the friendship and partnership stage, like in the transition period.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing. Khalil, what about you and Rayshawn? Did y'all go together?
Yeah, it does like
And JoJo, what'd y'all decide?
partnership.
All three of you. Okay. All right, how many said they were in the membership stage? Raise your hand. How many of us are members? Okay, a couple hands. Okay. All right. So we're just, if I understand that correctly, we would be saying that we're in that place where we're just kind of getting into the whole church thing, right? We're just beginning to kind of really see the value in that, perhaps, and so we're getting into that stage. Who was in the friendship? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. So we've taken another step. We've already decided we belong. Now we're kind of taking some steps. All right. Very good. Who was partnership? Okay. Good. We got some partners in here. Good. And kinship. Anybody there? Just me. No kinships. And I think. I would hope, obviously, this is what we're all aspiring to be. But understand, it's I won't say impossible, but it's impossible to jump from being a member to kinship. Like there's a reason these things are staged and like they are, and they take time. Okay, so be patient with that journey. Okay? All right. And then lastly, what do we have? Discipleship. And in discipleship, I had talked to y'all out of Psalm 32:8. What happens in discipleship? The church grows. Sir? Talk to me, people.
The church grows closer.
Somebody said it. Say it nice and loud.
Closer.
Deeper. Okay? The church grows deeper. We also talked about, how discipleship requires a commitment. Listen, so what were the 3 phases? So first thing we had was, or not phases, I'm sorry, that's the wrong word. Hold on. I would say 3 needs. Let's call it that. 3 needs for it to happen. I think 3 things. To set the stage, you got to have 3 things that are going on for the real discipleship to happen. What was the first one? With my favorite word, an intentional leader. Okay? You got to have an intentional leader. Somebody's got to be the wise guider of the whole process. All right? What's the second thing that's got to exist? Boom. Very good. A relational atmosphere. Third, and what does a relational atmosphere mean? Give me an example, Trip. Is this relational?
Yes.
This is a relational atmosphere here? Okay, some of you are saying yes, some of you are saying no. So I guess it depends on the group, right? Your sports team? Did somebody say that? Did I hear sports? Okay.
I cannot see the screen.
Okay? So the relational atmosphere part comes with whoever the group is. Because some people may feel very relational in a setting like this. I don't. It's too many people. This doesn't feel relational to me. Because if I look around the room and look at every face, I'm trying to think. Not counting the basketball team. Like, I maybe have a real relationship with like 4 of you that are not on the basketball team. Maybe. Maybe 4. So I would not consider this very relational. To me, relational has got to be a smaller group. Relational is a little more intimate, because if it's just the 4 of us in a discipleship group, that's very intimate, because I'll get to know Trenton, I'll get to know Kylie, I'll get to know Tiara. We will grow much closer, much deeper, and the smaller the group gets, the more you'll share. You know how I know that? Because I sit in here with y'all every day. When I call on someone in general just to answer a question, everybody stares at the floor. But if we were in a group of 3 or 4 people, and I said, hey, if it was just us 4 and I asked a question, all 3 of you would probably be jumping over each other to answer questions just because you already have an existing relationship. This is very relational. But we get in this room and the 3 of you will sit a lot more like this just because you don't have a relationship with everybody in the room. Does that make sense? So I do not consider this relational, because if it was, you would be wide open with sharing your feelings, your fears, your scares, concerns, your sin. Like, you would share all that stuff. Does that make sense? So that's got to be part of a relational atmosphere. All right, and then lastly, what? Repeatable. A repeatable process. And now let me give you an example. This little series that we've done. When I was a pastor, I taught this series in our church. And I also taught this to a small group of our deacons I also taught this to a small group of youth leaders, and I challenged them to take this information and go do it with another group. This is repeatable. Everything we've been doing, this is repeatable. Mackenzie, you could walk out of here and take this series that we've been doing, and you could the three of you could sit down together and go through this as a trio. And say, let's really go deeper with this stuff. Where are we really at? And see, the three of you, because of your relational atmosphere, y'all would do this really well together. Because there's a friendship. I would even argue, y'all might even be closer to kinship on that. Okay? Because of the setting, the relational atmosphere, you'd interact a lot more. But this is a repeatable thing. Does that make sense? So if we were doing this in an intimate setting in a smaller group, this certainly would fit. Everything we've just done would fit that narrative. Okay? All right, the other thing we talked about as it related to discipleship was that there were levels to it, correct? Remember those? So number 2 was the levels of discipleship. Okay? What was the first one? That sounds familiar, didn't it? It comes back to what we just said a second ago. Listen, if you're going to have discipleship, if I said to these three, I want to disciple the three of you. Now, first I'm assuming that I know that all three are saved. If all three are not saved, can we do discipleship? No, we can't. Because discipleship is about growing deeper in our faith. If we don't have faith to begin with, there is no discipleship that can happen. So if I said to these three, I want to start meeting with you regularly, I may ask it in that way because I have no idea where they're at individually with their relationship with Christ. We might find 2 of the 3 of them don't have a relationship with Christ. Maybe none of the 3 do. Maybe all 3 do. I just don't know. And so I wouldn't approach them and go, hey, I want to disciple you guys. I want us to go deeper together. Instead, I might go, I would like us to start to meet together. And what we're going to do is walk through what does it look like to be a Christian and establish if we're saved. And when it's clear that they are, then we could begin to transition and say, hey, guys, let's start diving in deeper. But they would first, in order for discipleship to happen, the 3 of them would individually have to say, yes, I'm in. I keep joking with y'all about playing basketball. You would have to get to the place where you first decide, yeah, I want to do it. Yes, I'll be a member of the basketball team. So it goes for anything in life. We have to first decide, I'm in. I want to do it. I'll be a member. Okay? And once we establish that we want to do it, that we want to be a part of it, then we begin to grow. So the next step, after we decide to be in it, is to start maturing. If you decide to start playing basketball, Mackenzie, now all of a sudden after those first couple weeks of practice, you're deciding and you're seeing what does it look like to start to grow as a basketball player. You decide to cheer for the first time. Those first few weeks of practice, it's all about how do I learn to be a better cheerleader? How do I learn the proper movements? How do I learn the techniques? How do I beginning to learn the language of the cheers? Right? So once we decide, then we start maturing, which is growing. We start growing, we start maturing. It's almost like we are, I would say this, we are becoming. Does that make sense? Yes? No? All right. Membership would be where we are believing. I'm committing, I'm believing this is a good thing for me, I'm going to do it. Then we have maturity, which is where we are becoming. That's kind of the growing stage, really, if you will. All right, what's level 3? Somebody said it over there, I think. What did you say? Ministry. Very good. Okay? Now that we've become a member, now that we've matured, now we begin to actually do ministry. And we are beginning to prove that we belong. Going back to that basketball analogy, now Mackenzie becomes this great basketball player, and now Mackenzie takes it upon herself to begin to pour into another teammate and help another teammate become better. She maybe encourages another girl to say, hey, come be a part of what we're doing. Do you guys see the parallel between a silly old basketball example and the gospel? Addison gets saved. She's becoming a more mature Christian. She wants other people to experience the joy of that, so she starts to minister to other girls. What happens when you play basketball and you have success with it and you love it and you enjoy it? You begin to reach out to other girls and help your teammates be better, but then you also start reaching out to other girls and saying, hey, don't you want to come be a part of this? That's what we do as Christians. We say, hey, don't you want to come know Jesus? And so there's a great parallel there. All right, and then what's the fourth one? Multiplying. Multiplying. Now Addison's asking all these girls, hey, don't you want to come be a part of this? And guess what? Because people see that she's good, she's sweet, she's passionate, she has joy, she seems to have fun doing it, they go, well, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And if your Christian walk is full of joy and passion and energy, people will go, there might be something to this Jesus. And maybe, just maybe, other people will come be a part of it. And so if we've got believing and becoming, belonging, then what would multiplying? What's a good B word? How about building? Start building the kingdom. We start building our basketball program. We start building our band program. We start building a drama department. We start building our Christian kingdom. Okay? All right. All right, so then, after we've done all of those things, that was number Romans 6. Finally, we close it out. So we've done the 4 levels, right? We've talked about what they were. I introduced the problem. So my sermon title was The 5 Purposes of the Church. I did the introduction, which really, frankly, the introduction not only was the intro, but it also kind of laid out or introduced the problem, didn't it? Didn't I kind of sort of lay out the problem? The fact that the small percentages of people who attend twice a month, blah, blah, blah. I kind of laid out what the issue was. Does that make sense? Okay? So I gave some illustrations. I talked about the why. I gave you the scripture we were going to start with. And then I started getting into what those purposes are. Worship, ministry, evangelism, fellowship, discipleship. So what comes next?
Conclusion.
Yeah. I will call it summary, conclusion, I don't care which word, whatever you want to call it. Call it what you want to. But now comes the summation. And that was where we said, okay, now that you know all this, now that you've been presented with this information, the question becomes, in any good sermon, the question is always, what's next? And so when I summed this up and did it with you, who remembers what my solution or what the answer to that question was when I asked y'all what's next? Who remembers what I asked you? You probably didn't write it down because I just asked you a question. It wasn't really a note. See, if no one remembers, okay, let me phrase it another way before I say no one knows, because I think somebody does, they're not speaking. What was the takeaway from going through this for you? Anybody? What was your takeaway?
You mean by like what did we take from this?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess like you learning like people understanding what the actual words like ministry and membership means and what it really stands for. So that's my takeaway.
Okay? How many of you have ever been, quote unquote, taught the value of going to church? Literally, I think about 2 hands. So this was new then for most of us. Because see, you've no doubt, if your family's involved in church, you've no doubt heard the whole, you really need to be in church every Sunday. But why? Because if you're like most teenagers, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, maybe you don't say it to mom and dad, maybe you do, you're sitting there going, why? I certainly was that kid. I was like, we went every Sunday, every Wednesday. I was involved in youth group, blah, 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 all that. All my best friends were in my youth group in church, even though I didn't really enjoy church, really. But I went because my parents dragged me. I spent my whole childhood going, why is this really important? The only part of church I really liked was youth group stuff because we did fun stuff that were with other kids from other, and it helped me meet kids from other schools. My takeaway, the summary for me, as I asked y'all the question is, which level are you in, and what can you do to go to the next one? That was the question that I posed at the end. So my takeaway for it, was to evaluate which one of these things, which one of these levels, which one of these purposes, what describes where I'm at, and then how do I go to the next one? Am I just in the stage where I just enjoy the worship of church and I'm not really interested in more right now? If so, how do I get interested in moving out of just going for the worship and beginning to move into other steps? So that was what I asked you. Again, that wasn't something you might have written down, but that was my hope, my summary was to say to you, now that you've heard all this, Jillian, how can you transition from here to here? If you're already here, then how do you go from here to here? That was my takeaway, and that was my summary. And so if I were doing this over, that's what I would ask you. To evaluate which one of these you are, and how do you go to the next one. Questions? All right, anything that you feel like you might be missing in your notes at all that you want to talk about before tomorrow's test? We got about, 5 minutes or so of class maybe. No questions?
How many questions are there on the test?
About 50.
So basically Tuesday. Well, I guess it is Tuesday. You look really excited.
I am excited. I love learning.
You look almost giddy, actually.